Well, I want to welcome everyone to the webinar, our April 2026 webinar. And my special guest today is McKay Price. And McKay, you run a construction company. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, the company, what you specialize in.
Perfect. Yeah. So, like you said, my name is McKay with Hyperpeak Remodeling. We're locally based out of St. George. I think 5 generations here, so a lot of pioneer heritage going through me. We're out of Laverick, and that's where I live right now. But we work with anybody who needs any type of projects. Currently, I'm actually at a project we're replacing all of these windows for double hung, better insulated window. We just want to make sure everyone gets the most out of their homes. So for this client, it's replacing all of her windows so that they're higher quality. I just left a job this morning where the client tenants moved out, so they want to get a higher rate. So we've increased a lot of the things to make it more valuable, more renter friendly. A lot of second homes we're doing right now. A lot of people who there's a big boom back in the 70s and 80s, and now it's time for the next generation to pick those up and make them, I guess, current, bring them up to date more than anything.
Yeah, perfect. And as a realtor from our side, I mean, we have clients that we flip houses with and have done so for years, and individuals too. I'll always present if someone is looking at selling their house, or oftentimes when they first buy the house, they're going to ask me, "What would you do?" And I'll kind of go through a laundry list, and a lot of times they get right on it. Other times it'll be 3 to 5 years down the road before they start something, but they recognize that they can get significantly more money for their investment. And then sometimes they start stuff without me and they spend a lot of money in areas where they're not going to recover a whole lot of it.
Yeah.
And so all of that is true in what happens with real estate. You mentioned a couple things I want to just touch on. Let's talk about renovations, and one of the trends that we're seeing in a lot of areas, but I'm going to use Bloomington because 25, 30 years ago, Bloomington was the cat's meow of southern Utah.
Yeah.
And those houses now, actually, they're 40 years old. They're 30 to 40 years old, not 20 to 25.
Time flies.
Yes, it does. It's a great area for renovation because within one neighborhood, you'll have houses that are in the mid fives up to 1.5 million. And the reason as a realtor I say that's a great scenario is if you go into an area that has primarily a rundown neighborhood and no one's really remodeled in there and you're the first one to do it, I mean, hats off to the trailblazers, but the lead Indians are usually the ones that get arrows in their butt, right? So it doesn't always work out. The neighborhood has to be congenial to a higher end remodel. And I'm talking about remodels where maybe a $600,000 house, they put 150,000 into it and we can sell it for maybe 900 to a million one. And that happens all the time. However, there's a strategy from the real estate side behind it. From your side, what are the most common things that you see that clients put maybe $20,000 into, but it really doesn't yield probably more than $5,000? What are the biggest mistakes you see out there?
That's a pretty easy question. I see it pretty often, and I have to bite my tongue when I see it because I come from the investor side myself. But one of the biggest things is when people really make it a custom space, meaning they sky blue walls, or they do a lot of these very specific tastes. They make like an ocean themed room, like these kinds of things. They're great if one of the jokes I've been saying recently, I've had a couple of clients, is they're turning their homes into caskets. They plan on dying in their house. They don't really want to worry about taking care of it after, but it becomes such a hassle because it's such an eyesore. And that actually, so yeah, that would be the first point, would be people making it too customized so that it's only to their specific taste. And then the other one is just going too rich, I guess I would say, like too high end.
Yeah.
There's a certain point you're not going to get that return. You had said earlier about in the neighborhood, you don't want to be the house that sticks out. You don't want to be too grandiose, too fancy in a neighborhood. You want it to blend, and that's the same thing with remodels. I say that a good remodel is you can't really tell that it was remodeled. It just makes sense that it's like that. For example, if you spend $30,000 on making your master bathroom just primo, high end tile, European hand painted tile, and custom crafted cabinets, but all the rest of your other kitchen is like linoleum or subpar materials. It ends up going against you because if someone's buying into the house, they either have to turn the rest of the house to look like your one bathroom, or they have to tear out your brand new bathroom and tone it down.
Yeah, no, awesome. And it's exactly what, I've seen as a realtor. A lot of times with flips, I mean, it would be ideal if we just had doily wallpaper, in the house and grandma's, outdated curtains. I mean, that's like an ideal scenario that we look for.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't always happen though.
No.
A lot of times someone has halfway renovated something, like you say, and it's a matter of bringing the rest of the house up. But and there's no one formula. Each house is unique on its own. I think what we look for as a realtor is good bones,
Mm-hmm.
and then number two, what's it going to take to rehab this thing, and how extensive does it really need to be done? And sometimes that involves adding square footage to the house.
Yeah.
And we have just a rule of thumb that you got to add more than 10 vertical feet out of the house in any place, because otherwise it's just not going to cover its cost for the permits and everything else. In other words, you can't just add 100 square feet to a house and have that profitable, because the permits alone are going to be a lot,
Yeah.
and different things like that.
And time frame and the way that impacts the rest of the house, it all, that's one of the biggest hurdles, I guess I would say, I see, is people want to do this addition, but they don't realize that if you're touching this, you're going to have to touch the whole side of the house is going to have to be retextured, or all the flooring throughout the half the house is going to have to be done. It's not so simple as just copy and paste. You got to actually blend it. You have to tie it in. You have to thread it in. It's not so simple as just drag and drop.
Yeah, I wish it were. Let me ask you this: if a seller has $10,000 to $25,000 to invest, what should they invest in? What's going to be the best for their return? Just, and I'm talking generically. We're not obviously changing structure for that,
No.
but just tell me what you see most often.
So the quickest returns I've seen, and this is what I always push on projects, is just a fresh coat of paint. I know it completely transforms the space. We just did a house over in Ivans where they had like a puke yellow. No, it was probably more like a beige on all of the walls and all of the trim, and the place just felt like a dungeon. So we repainted all the walls and the ceiling. Oh, and you can get expensive with your paint. You can do multiple accent walls, and you can do all of the different finishes. You can do that. But I say, if you're selling the house, a simple single tone on walls and base, let the person go. If they're going to end up doing improvements on the property, just make it look clean. So the first one would be that, and then the next would be like your finishes, doorknobs, door hinges. That makes a big improvement. Light fixtures. I just
Yeah,
spent
amen.
on that house. I went to Home Depot and I got just the standard. I was $1,500 worth of lights, and the place is going to look brand new.
Yeah,
So
amen.
and that's one of the other things that I've seen is you can really, that's the same as anything else. You can get lost on it. So just being conservative. They make quality products. There's decent stuff. It's just being realistic with what you're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times, I mean, that's kind of identical to formulas we've worked with, and I would add bathroom fixtures into that, and
Oh,
possibly
sure.
countertops in bathrooms, because a lot of countertops on kitchens, it's already granite, already quartzite,
Hmm.
and really there's no reason to change that unless there's something that you're doing major in the kitchen. But a
Yeah.
lot of times bathrooms, they've got Formica countertops, or they've got just something really funky, like, the old, oh, I don't know what it's called, but it's the molded, anyway, funky.
The manufactured stone,
Yeah, yeah,
the
molded.
fake stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, between I don't know what I hate more, that fake stone, actually no, Formica or the tiled countertops. I just can't
Oh,
believe
I
in them.
know. Yeah. I hear you. And I'm not even the one that cleans our countertops. But I mean, come on, you're in there with a toothbrush trying to scrub out yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And the cool thing about doing countertops, most countertops are small enough to where you can use remnant material. And remnant material means you can use a grade that is like way up there in price.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's a remnant, you can get it for, dirt cheap compared
Remnants have
to,
saved many jobs. I had a job where we ended up finding it was one of my first renovation jobs, and the countertop in the kitchen cracked when they did the remediation. And so I was able to find a piece of that remnant instead of buying, because the slab is going to cost you $3,500,
yeah,
4,000. It was actually more like six. But I was able to find a piece of that remnant for this where the sink was, and it ended up only costing me like $600.
yeah,
So there's definitely ways that you can cut costs on a lot of it.
yeah. Um, so let me ask you this. When should a seller renovate versus just selling as is, in your opinion? And I know this from my real estate background.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to ask this from psychologically. There are some sellers that cannot stomach a remodel, they can't live through it.
Yeah.
And I come from a construction background, and I've had work done on my own places while I've lived in them. And I think when you come from a construction background, it's different because you expect it to be, I don't want to say a nightmare, but it's going to definitely be an intrusion in your life,
Yeah.
especially a bathroom remodel or a kitchen remodel. Kitchen remodels are tough to live through. But, there's a lot of variables with construction. And I think the rule of thumb that I try to prep clients with is there's going to be a lot of things that go wrong that have to get corrected. And it just happens, but they will be corrected, and they will, these things will get ironed out. But you've got subs, you've got people, time frames, and there's a million variables, and it's not going to go all cookie cutter.
No.
So tell me about when someone should remodel and when they shouldn't remodel. Let's say a kitchen remodel, because I think that's the most stressful thing that I've seen on clients.
What makes a kitchen remodel so stressful is you only have one kitchen. If it's a bathroom, you can use the other bathroom. It's a bedroom. I did a master bedroom where they had, I think they had mold. It was mold, so they didn't want to stay in the bedroom. So they put their master bedroom bed. They just put it in their living room. They camped out in the living room till we finished the whole master bedroom. Like that's doable. But a kitchen, we did a job out in Tokerville, and we brought in because there's stuff that you can't avoid, like between cabinets and getting cabinets installed and countertops, you're about a week out for them to template it and get it cut. So that's what people don't think about, is it's not so simple as, unplug and plug it back in. We got to set the cabinets. We have to, and then what we did for that client is I bring a mop sink in and I set it in their kitchen, and I bring a slab of butcher block and I set that on their kitchen so they can start using their space, because countertop isn't really that dirty putting it in. You might get a little dust, but you can pull your drawers out. So that's one of the things that I try to do to not make it such a living hell. But going back to your question, if you're going to sell, you're better off just doing like a light recoating of your cabinets. I try to push very minimum stuff, because at the end of the day, your clients, the people buying, are they're going to be the one to want to do a lot more work on it. What do you think? Would you say that falls kind of in line with what you're saying? Just try to find the minimum amount of work. Don't do anything you need permits. Don't do anything you need to do structural, or you're tearing out whole entire spaces. Just try to polish it before you get it on the market.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like I say, I get called a year ahead of time, and they ask my opinion on different things, and will want to do different things. And I actually just have a sit down conversation with them about the psychology of, are is this something you really want to do?
Mm-hmm.
Can you handle it? A lot of clients will set up maybe their temporary kitchen, which is just a Coleman stove and something really basic out in the garage, or like
Yeah.
you say, bring a piece of butcher block and, set it up somewhere for them. There's, it's more like camping in the sense of the kitchen remodel. And I think you're right. Kitchen remodels are probably the toughest one, but it's not right for everyone.
No.
For me, when I walk in a house with a buyer, I will see things that, wow, if you just did this and this and this, you'd be, 30 or 40 grand ahead right now in today's market. And you'd probably spend, 5 grand, 7 grand to do those things. And it's mainly paint and really simple things on smaller houses, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, like you say, a lot of times they look like dungeons when you come into the house, but on bigger projects that are kitchen remodels, a lot of times kitchen remodels do have wall removal and, islands that are going to be put in.
Cutting concrete, you got to move utilities. There's
Yeah,
drywall.
saw cut the concrete to bring in the drains and the electrical, and there's a lot more to it than people just see right
Oh,
off the
I
bat.
see it every day. It's an absolute nightmare, but it's worth it
Yeah,
if you have the capacity to camp like you say, and you can make your selections. And that's the other part is you can get lost in it. You can get custom cabinets and you're $100,000 in just the boxes. Just about like you can really get crazy with it, and not all the time it's worth it.
right.
Uh, but that's just kind of more of the investor side of me, and I know that there's definitely times when you can flip it, and what I see though is I see the difference of like the comparables versus like the street value, what people the street appeal, what people would be more interested in that, and that's the reason that'd be a reason to do it alone is if you can make such a big improvement, if you can get rid of the like you said the Formica countertops or the particle board cabinets, the Home Depot specials, like you can definitely do some things to completely transform the space.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times too, we see in the older homes, we see oak cabinets, and not that I'm down on oak, but it just has a dated look.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we'll do, basically a painting of the cabinets, although it's not paint. We're using, I think, lacquer.
Yeah, lacquer and epoxy. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
patch up like the naughty alders.
yeah, just to make it, look a little bit more new. And I think that's one of the secrets to flipping a house is you're not having to pay for a reface but it's not cheap to have the cabinets redone with epoxy and lacquer because it's a ton of work. And, I get it. But I think a lot of times people have these grandiose ideas, especially after the Parade of Homes.
Oh, for
Like,
sure.
I want to put a Wolf stove in. I want the big 8 burner one. And I want to do this and I want to do that. Well, that's great. I'm a big fan of high end appliances. If you've got a $700,000 house base going up, because a lot of times we can see that $700,000 house go to 1.2 million with a really good kitchen remodel and remodeling the bathrooms.
Interesting.
But you can get lost on that because you can spend 60 grand on appliances,
Oh, easily.
and there is a point of diminishing returns. And, the neighborhood and everything else, as we've discussed, has something, to do with that. Let me ask you this. I'm going to just switch over to your own. If you were selling your own home in the next 90 days, what are the things that you would want to do on it just off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, if I was selling my house, um, the problem is I've already done a lot of it.
Yeah, I figured you probably have.
Yeah, probably get rid of the carpet. I feel like carpet's kind of losing its appeal. I think that going switching to like a high end LVP, something with a lot of cushion, is I think that that's kind of the move where I see a lot of people are going. It gives you a lot more versatility in the space because you're not tied into the carpets, and it also gives you a better barrier. I
Yeah.
think that doing that and then getting like a nice throw rug is the way to go.
Yeah. No, I think that's prudent. I think
Uh,
that's prudent. A lot of times, too, one of the challenges I see in the marketplace is they've done a great job remodeling the inside and outside. It just looks like it's been neglected on the entry. or the backyard actually
Yeah.
for 50 years. And you can spend a lot of money on landscaping. Money goes really fast in landscaping, but
Mhm.
there's also some relatively cost effective things that can be done for just curb appeal or backyard appeal. So I know when you guys work projects, sometimes that's part of the equation. Do you see resistance from clients doing that, or do you see kind of acceptance on that?
That's kind of a tricky question. I mean, it's really just a spectrum. There's so many different situations. Most of the time, because of the professionalism that I bring and the experience, that they trust a lot of the opinions I bring into it. Um, and then I also come from the perspective of like what absolutely has to be done on some of these houses, or where do we have to go from here to get that. And then a lot of the decisions, I'm not a master at this. I bring in professionals like you, or I bring in interior designers and just say, hey, what do we need to do to get this across the finish line? What is your opinion? Do you think we need to do? Because at the end of the day, I'm only so good. There's people who have more experience. I'm not going to tell you how to tile something. I'm going to bring in a tile guy, or something along those lines. Um, is that kind of the route?
Yeah, and that brings up a really good point. You told me that you always use a designer when you do a project, no matter what. It's just part of the program every single time. And I really like that because designers know what's happening right now
Yeah.
and they know how to make something look current to where it's going to be more valuable. I mean, I've seen houses that, you know, a designer came in on a $700,000 house and they spent about 200,000 on it. So now we're up to 900,000. House sold for 1.5. And it was just because the design elements were in place. I mean, yes, they did a kitchen remodel and a minor bathroom remodels, but overall the design just flowed. And I think that's so smart as a builder that you insist upon that, is what you told me anyway. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Yeah. No, there's many strengths I have, and I'm well aware of my weaknesses, and I know. For me, it's not important that my machoism, or whatever. It's that the client is taken care of, and I know that they can be taken care of with this professional, with the specific one. I've had a couple of different projects where before I really was sold on that, where I brought in just for example, one of my projects, I just brought in a supplier for a tile and said, okay, hey, what do we need to do to make this look nice? Well, the the supplier wasn't respectful with the budget. They sold us all on one specific tile for a 12 by 24 gray tile. Well, we're trying to make it, modern contemporary. We don't want it to look like, a Skid Row, or, a cheap house. So I brought in my entire interior designer after that, and we said, well, this is some things we can do that can improve. We can paint these cabinets. We can. She recommended going to a couple of tile stores, and they had some tile on clearance. So we were able to stay within a striking distance of the budget, but the house looks brand new. It looks amazing. So you'll be seeing.
Yeah.
I was there this morning, so we'll have pictures of that on my website. That
Well,
Hyperpeak.
cool. And that's what it's all about. Listen, we only have 2 more minutes or so left on this, and I haven't had a chance to answer questions that are uh, on the webinar here
Okay.
from other people, and we will do our best to have a rematch of this at some point in time in the future because I know there's going to be questions. But can you, as we wrap up, just give us your contact information and how people can get a hold of you?
For sure. So if you go to hyperpeak.build, that's my website. You can see my client testimonials. You can see connections to my Instagram. I strongly believe that any contractor in 2026 that doesn't have a social media is doing shady work. Social media is the way that people can't hide. If I was doing shady work, people would be on there messaging me and saying stuff like that. So that's why I strive to be that present. So yeah, Hyperpeak Remodeling on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. I'm just trying to get. I'm trying to give out so that I can get more from the whatever it's called, the system. Trying to give out all the tools I can to help people. So if anybody needs anything, I give out free ballpark estimates and everything.
Good, good, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you, McKay, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. And get some good videos of your before and afters, as I know you always do.
Hmm.
And that's some fun stuff, especially on social media. People love to see before and afters.
You can have a lot of fun with it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
All
Well,
right. Well, this is Dave Diegelman with Equity Real Estate. We're going to sign off on this now. If I can help you with any real estate questions, my number is 435 703 4041. Well, God bless you all, and thanks for joining.